Hey guys, it's Jessica. Welcome back to the Library Dispatch, my weekly reading update. This week brought dark fantasy, spooky reads, and a little bit of autumn flair. I have stories about faith and redemption. I have some really epic mythic storytelling, and then I have a house that might or might not attempt to eat you. So, if that sounds good to you, stick around. We're going to start, as we do every single week, with my question of the week. And the question of the week is, what is a book that really stuck with you after you finished it? And I will have my answer for you at the end. So be thinking about your answer to this question and tell me about the reads that really stuck with you. So let's go ahead and get started with the books that I finished this week. As I mentioned last week, I was reading The Isle in the Silver Sea by Tasha Suri. I did have an arc of this book, an advanced reader copy, and it was one of my most anticipated reads of the fall, as I earlier this year read the entire Burning Kingdoms trilogy by the same author and gave the first two books 5 stars, and the third book, 3.5. I didn't like it as much as the first two, but that's okay. So I was really, really looking forward to this book. Let me tell you what it's about. It is about a knight and a witch, and it is set in kind of an alternative Britain where the land, the Isle, is kind of fueled and created by stories in a very, very literal sense. We have people who are basically reincarnated to become members of these stories who are fated to act them out over and over and over again. And if the storyline is broken, it will actually just destroy a part of the world. So that is an extremely epic and I think unusual setup for a fantasy story. And in this one, we are specifically following the tale of the knight and the witch. And our two main characters are a knight and a witch, a little bit non-traditional knight and witch, who are fated to fall in love and then die over and over and over again. I will let you all know right up front, I was a little bit disappointed in this book. I don't by any means think that it was a bad book. I think that Tasha Suri is a fantastic writer. I always love her prose. It's so strong. But I did have a couple things in this book that just didn't really work for me. And I think the first one I have to mention is the world building. And I think that may be because this is a standalone novel and also because it is a romantasy and the focus was much more on the romance than it was on the world building. But I really struggled to wrap my head around this world. I think the fact that it was an alternate England, while I understand the choice, made it more difficult for me to figure out where things were supposed to be taking place within the story. And just in general, I kind of just didn't understand it. I didn't understand how it worked. And so that was a struggle I had. And my other struggle is the one that's probably a problem for this book, which is that I just didn't really buy into the romance. I liked both characters individually, but I didn't feel the chemistry between them, which made it more difficult for me to really care. But having said that, as I said, beautiful writing. And if you find yourself really falling in love with these characters and their romance, I think that this will be a 5-star read for you. It was not a 5-star read for me just because I struggled with those two things. And I did find it a little bit of a chore to get all the way through it, to be honest. And I do still highly recommend that if you haven't read the Burning Kingdoms trilogy, which begins with the Jasmine Throne, that you do read that. But I feel like this book is quite different from that. This is more on the romantasy side, and that's more epic fantasy. So if you're more epic fantasy than romantasy, this one might not be for you, as I don't really feel like it was for me. But again, I recommend giving it a try because I do think it was beautifully, beautifully written. After I was a little bit disappointed in that book, I kind of struggled. I kind of cast around to see what I might like to read next. And I ended up picking a book that was not actually on my TBR for this month, but it is a book that I have been meaning to read for quite some time. And that book is Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman. Between Two Fires is a medieval horror novel. I would say it's very evenly balanced between the fantasy and the horror aspects of it. And I absolutely love this book. This is a 5-star read for me. There is no question. By the time I got 20% into the book, I knew it was going to be a 5-star read. But let me step back and explain to you all what it was about and kind of why I liked it so much. So this is a story of Thomas. Thomas is a disgraced knight for reasons that you will find out in the course of the story. And at the very beginning, he is with a set of brigands and they come across a young girl. Through a series of events, Thomas winds up traveling with the girl in a medieval Europe that is beset by the Black Death, where people are dying horribly, where the line between heaven and humanity feels, I think, much more fine than it does in modern day. And the girl has some things going on with her, some mysterious, saintly kind of things going on with her. I don't want to spoil anything about this book for you, so I want to be really careful about what I say. And Thomas isn't really sure he believes in them, but he does travel with her. They do meet up with a priest who I also really loved, who travels with them as well. And I just thought this book was so fantastic. I thought that it did such an amazing job balancing the idea of faith and redemption and darkness and light. It does have a fantastical element that has to do with angels that I will not, again, spoil for you. That really worked for me. Any kind of like angelic, religious fantasy horror book usually is going to be something that I want to really enjoy, but don't always really enjoy. And this book just, I don't even know how to say it. It was moving. I cried multiple times. I loved all of the characters and I loved what it had to say. It had so much heart. It had so much empathy, but it was also a horror novel. It was very bloody. It was very dark in places, but you always felt like that darkness, you could see some of the light peeking through. And I have read The Black Tongue Thief by this author, which is a more recent book by him, and I liked it. I thought it was about a 4-star, 3.75, 4-star read for me. But this book was something else entirely. This book shocked me with how good it was. I think that if you bounced off The Black Tongue Thief, perhaps because of some of the humor or kind of the stylized nature of it, because it's very much in that quippy hero grimdark style, I think that you might want to give this book a try because I think it's very different. And I just thought it was so fantastic. I would also recommend it for people that really enjoyed The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, or again, people who liked the idea of the Devils but felt like it was too surface level, or who did not like the humor, which is super aggressive in that one. I really like The Devils, but I also thought the humor at the beginning was a little much. This one, very similar themes, but I think you might enjoy it more. It does have some of that same kind of humor, but it never takes it over the top. And all the characters felt very real. So that's going to be, probably my highest recommendation of the week because I just thought it was so good. And it was such a surprise to me. And I was feeling a little bit slumpy and it just took me like right back out. After I finished that book, I thought, let's keep on the spooky theme, which is kind of what I've been doing this month. I mean, it is October, right? And I decided to try The Late Night Witches by Auralee Wallace. This is an author who I have really enjoyed. I really enjoy her, I think it's the Evenfall Witches series that begins with In the Company of Witches. I think those are cozy mysteries that also have a lot of heart and a lot of emotion to them, and I really enjoyed them. So I was expecting this to be more of the same, this story in which we follow a mother, kind of a single mom, who is denying what's going on in her town, where there are vampires and witches, and she may be the only one who can save everyone. Okay, that's a really common kind of setup for this kind of book. And I was expecting to really enjoy it. I wasn't expecting it to be super deep, but I thought it would be fun. And I ended up DNFing it. I got to 30% and I just could not anymore. And that was primarily because of the main character, who I found very frustrating in her kind of general denial of reality in the world. I did not like her. And in general, I just thought that the book, it had a light and campy tone, something much more akin to like maybe like an episode, one of the sillier episodes of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer than anything that had real depth to it. And I think that I was expecting, because of what I have read from this author before, that this would be something that balanced those elements. And I didn't feel like it was. I felt like the characters didn't feel like real people. And I didn't really care about what was going on. And it did have a little bit of a practical magic vibe, if that's like what you're into, but nowhere near as good. So I really can't recommend this one, but I didn't finish it. But I've seen a lot of people who enjoyed her previous works also saying that this book was either just okay or they DNF'd it, and I was very disappointed. I'm sad I didn't like it, but I cannot really recommend it to you. And then I read one more book this week. I had a lot of reading time this week, and I finished it yesterday. And so I'm going to talk about it. It was also not on my TBR, and it is The Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre by Philip Fracassi. That is quite a title. But I also kind of think that that title gives you an idea of what you're going to be getting within the book. This is basically a slasher book set in a retirement home in which we are following the elderly residents of this retirement home as they navigate end of life issues, issues with do I still matter? Why don't my children come to visit me? Things like that, while also dealing with might be a killer in their midst. So I had seen this title. It came out this fall. I think it came out last month, and I was interested in it. But because I'm such a huge fan of the Thursday Murder Club series, a series which I feel like does such a great job of giving its elderly characters agency and making them feel like real people, I was worried, as I've never read anything from this author, that this might be a book that really reduced elderly people to stereotypes, which is something I feel very strongly we should not do. And I was wrong. This book, I would say if you liked the Thursday Murder Club, but you're like, what if Thursday Murder Club, but more murder? I actually think this might not be a bad pick for you. Keep in mind it is a slasher book, so there is going to be like a higher body count. It had some gore to it, but I wouldn't say it was crazy. But I do think it had some heart. Our main character, Rose, is someone who has a little bit of a past, a little bit of a history that really influences the way that she deals with her friends at the retirement home and the way that she approaches when she finds that people are dying and no one is taking it seriously because, of course, old people die, right? But maybe there might be something else going on. I found it tremendously affecting sometimes. Even the scenes where there were deaths, I felt like were handled like really sensitively and they were kind of moving. And yeah, this book really surprised me. It really, really surprised me. I really enjoyed it. I think that if you are looking for a lighter horror read, something that's not going to be like terrifying, but you want it to be spooky this season, and if you enjoyed Thursday Murder Club, I think that this actually might be a really good pick for you because I didn't think it was scary, like at all. But I did think that it was just something different. Really enjoyed it. I would definitely read more from this author. I thought it was super well written. I thought the characters felt real. Just a really great book. Now it is time to move on to what I am currently reading, and I am currently in the middle of 2 books. The first one I have already talked about, but I think I'd only read a few pages when I started it, so obviously I have more to say because I have hit the 50% mark with House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski. Is that right? I hope it's right. So let's talk about House of Leaves. I am 50% of the way in. I am enjoying my experience with this book, and I would definitely describe it as an experience. This is not a normal book. This is not something that you're going to go into and just read it, front to back and be like, I understand everything now. You're essentially following 3 different storylines or 3 different narrators kind of at the same time as they overlap, as things within the book and the formatting of the book itself go a little bit crazy. And I don't really want to spoil anything in this book. I will say that, there are some parts of the story, some of the storylines that I am much more invested in. There's one that kind of actively annoys me, but I am still reading it. So, and I see the point. I do think this is an experience. I think this book is art, I think is how I would describe it. Is it always enjoyable? Probably not. It's a little hard to read because it's so big and floppy, and some of the text is really, really small. So I read it, and then sometimes I have to take breaks because I feel like I'm going to give myself eye strain because particularly in the footnotes, the text can be very, very tiny and difficult to read sort of. So, but I am 50% of the way through that. So I'm going to be finishing that in the next couple of weeks. And I know the last 100 pages or so of this book are actually like appendices and things like that, although I'm quite certain you're supposed to read those, and I will read those also. So about 50% of the way through, I'm having a good time. Do I think it's like super terrifying? No. I'm not particularly, I'm a little creeped out by some things about about the house, but I wouldn't say that I'm finding it to be like the scariest book that I've ever read yet, but 50% of the way through, things just took kind of a turn in the story of the house, so we will see how I like the second half. And then the other book that I'm currently reading, I'm only 8% into, so I can't say a lot about it yet, but that book is The Everlasting by Alix E. Harrow. This is a new release, or a book that's coming out actually, I think on the 28th of October, so at the very end of the month, and I have an arc of it, and it was one of my most anticipated books of the year. I know I keep saying that, but Alix E. Harrow, I just really love her writing, and this is based on a short story of hers that I haven't actually read. So I was just like so excited to read this, and so far it is not disappointing me. Her writing is beautiful, and we are following at the very beginning of this book a character named Owen, who is an academic, a former soldier who has a little bit of an obsession with a female knight character from his country's history who is very much in the propaganda of his current day. And it's obvious he has some kind of a connection with her, and not really clear at this point what it is, but I am intrigued. I love his character. I love the writing. The writing is beautiful, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. And I am so invested, and I'm so, so excited to be able to come back next week and tell you all what I thought about it. But so far, it is really good. So now let's talk about what I'm going to be reading next. And I only have one book that is on my I definitely want to read it this week list. So after I finish The Everlasting, my plan is to pick up this book, which is quite different. And that is Slayers of Old by Jim C. Hines. Let's get close so that I can show you the creature on the front, which I am referring to as a Cthulhu. Why not? Yeah, so this is a story about some retired demon slayers who get called back into action for one last time to save the world. Okay, sounds great. This is a finished copy, but this was sent to me by the publisher, but it was on my TBR for this month, so I am extremely excited to read this one and tell you all next week what I think about it. It looks like it's going to be funny, and I am seeing it compared to the best of Buffy the Vampire Slayer all over the place, which of course is one of my television show obsessions. I love Buffy and Angel so, so very much. I have seen every episode probably, 20 times at least. I love them so much. So I will be hard to please with those kind of comparisons, but I am really excited to read this one. All right, now it's time to go back to that question of the week. And the question of the week that I had for you that I posed at the beginning is, what is a book that really stuck with you? Whether it's the setting, whether it's the characters, whether it's some kind of a theme that the book brought up that just is something that has lingered in your mind. So if you have anything like that you read recently that you'd like to share, please leave it in the comments, and I'm going to give you mine. I had a lot of things I could have chosen for this, but I chose a book that I read quite a while ago when it first came out that I still think about all the time, and that is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This is a story of an apocalypse. It's a post-apocalyptic book where a virus has really decimated the world. And at the very beginning of the book, and at some other parts in the book, we see as the virus is happening, and but most of the book takes place years later, and we see what humanity is doing to kind of pick up the pieces. And in particular, we are following characters who are with a traveling theater. And it discusses, I think, in a really profound way, what the arts mean and what the arts mean in a world where we have lost so much, and the importance of preserving these things and what they mean to people who really don't have anything to hope for. And I, as someone who is an artist, I found myself to be very, very moved by that idea, the idea that this is still something that we need, that we long for, that gives us something outside of ourselves to focus on, to think about, that makes us part of something greater. And I just thought that was really fantastic. And it's a really good book, really well-written book. I love Emily St. John Mandel. All three books that she has that are kind of set in this same world are very good. I like this one the best, but I also think Sea of Tranquility is super good too. And I honestly think you could start with any of them, although there are callbacks between the three books. So I would probably start with this one. But This one's really fantastic, and it has stuck with me ever since I first read it, and I keep thinking that I need to do a reread, and I haven't done it yet, so maybe soon. All right, so go ahead and leave me your answer to that question in the comments, or let me know what you've been reading this week, because I would absolutely love to know what you've been loving and what you haven't been loving quite as much. So go ahead and leave that in the comments, or if you're feeling quiet but you'd love to let me know that you're here, leave me the drop of blood emoji, an emoji that I just realized existed. And with that, I hope you all have a fantastic day. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.